Why should I talk about my personal hobbies? I said, this is Canada. They want to know who you are, what you like to do. And he told the manager that, okay, I like to go camping. And at the end of the interview, it was a virtual interview, the manager said, okay, I want to show you something. He shared his screen. He went on Google Map. He showed him a camping site. He said, you said you're going to go to this camping site. Make sure you put your camp here because the view of the sunset and the sunrise from this point is to die for.
Yeah.
That's happening in the interviews.
Yep.
And this is what the difference is in Canadian culture versus where we're coming from, the part of the world we are from. Yes, we only talk about work. It's just shop talk. We don't want to know what else is happening. Or it's just everything else, then shop talk. That's why that's the basic tip. Talk about yourself.
Yeah.
Just tell them what you like to do.
You're listening to East Meets West Pakistani Professional Journeys podcast.
Welcome to the East Meets West Pakistani Professional Journeys podcast. On today's episode, we have Umair Ayyub, who's joining us, a seasoned supply chain leader with a decade of expansive experience spanning from procurement to distribution in intricate manufacturing environments. He's worked at Nestle, Mondelez, Amazon, and currently working at Advantage Solutions. His profound engagement in supply chain operations has equipped him with an exceptional leadership, analytical, and change management abilities. He's very active in the community, having helped over 400 immigrants directly or indirectly land jobs in the first 2 to 3 months in the West. It's a pleasure having you on, Umair.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure talking to you, Azam, and I would like to appreciate you for what you're doing. And I hope it can reach the target audience and help a lot of immigrants start their career journey on the right foot in Canada.
Awesome. I guess we can get right into it. So how was your experience in Pakistan and how has it shaped you as a professional and as a person in the West?
Interesting question, Azam. In Pakistan, I had the privilege to work with some of the multinationals, including Nestle and then Mondelez as well. So I would say that I had an exposure to multinational culture when I was working in Pakistan. But the biggest thing I feel the difference between Pakistan and Canadian culture is that people are more courteous, people are less cutthroat, and the competition is not as high as it is in Pakistan. And you would see here that you will have, let's say, this is what I tell to new immigrants, that in Pakistan, one person is doing work which should be divided amongst 4 people. But in Canada, the same work would be done by 5 different people. So we'd have one extra person here. So the workload is not that insane. You're not expected to stay longer hours. Your managers, your teams are more courteous. You talk about your families, you talk about your pets, you talk about everything. In summers, you go camping, you go hiking, you go cycling. So people talk about other aspects of life. And that's very important to understand because in Pakistan, we are under the impression that we just get your work done. Nobody's interested in what's going on in your life. But in Canada, it's quite different than that. And it's actually good because you get to know a lot more about people. And then you do not just network with them at work, but you also get to network with them outside work. When you play sports together, you go for camping, or you plan your cycling trips, or you plan your night jogging as well. Some people are CrossFit athletes. So there's a lot that you can do here, and you make really good friends in your work circle as well.
Got you. And I guess we can get right into the advice you like to give new immigrants. Like you did mention that 400 immigrants that you've helped indirectly or directly. That's like really amazing, like in terms of the time commitment, as well as obviously you're a working professional as well. So that is awesome. So I guess the question.
Thank you so much.
Yep. The question is like, what are some of the myths you feel exist in some people when moving to the West in the job market?
Yeah, so that's something that is very close to my heart. And a few things that are very important that we need to understand. Coming from Pakistan, we are under the impression that everything goes through a referral. You need to have a referral. You need to know somebody in the company, and that's how you get a job. No matter how good your resume is or how good your profile is, it's all about referrals. Yes, it works in Pakistan because it's a smaller market. The work dynamics, the society dynamics are quite different. In Canada, it doesn't work that way. And so here are the 5 things that I tell all the immigrants. And that's not based on my personal experience alone. It's based on those 450 odd professionals that I've met in the last 1 year. So the first thing that I tell everybody is that you'll get a lot of free advice. It's human nature. If you ask me, do I know how to bake a cake? I might feel embarrassed saying no. So I would probably come up with some story to tell you. So you will get a lot of free advice. Let's say if you are working in finance and I am somebody who has no knowledge of finance market, and you ask me something that how's finance market in Canada, I'll just give you some advice which could mislead you. So I tell this to everybody that here is a very simple test or a filter that you need to make sure that every advice passes through this. And if it doesn't get through the filter, you do not listen to it. So I tell everyone that anyone who has not switched to at least one better job in the last 3 years, using their own resume and interview skills, not through a referral, not that my ex-boss moved from this company to another company, so he took me with him. No, based on their own resume and interview skills, if they have not made that switch in the last 3 years, do not listen to a single word that person says. I'm not looking down upon somebody. What I'm trying to say here is that somebody who's not ambitious, somebody who's not been actively applying in the last 3 years, they have not even looked at their own resume. They have been out of the job market. They don't know the current statistics, the current dynamics of the job market. Their advice will not be relevant. So please do not listen to anybody who does not qualify this criteria. The kind of things those people say, I call them the 4 myths of the Canadian job market. First thing we hear a lot in Canada is that you need to have a single page resume. It's a myth because it's not about the length of the resume. Yes, your resume should not be too long, like it should not be 5 to 6 pages. But it's more about the content of the resume, and even more importantly, how easy it is to skim through the resume. The emphasis here is not on reading the resume, it's on skimming through the resume. And that's exactly what your recruiter is going to do, or what the hiring manager is going to do. How you formulate your resume, or how you format it to make sure that it catches the eye, and all the significant information, the key skills, tools, competencies are laid out in the resume. That's what matters the most. Second myth you hear a lot is that in Canada, there is ATS that you need to get through, and you need to have the job scan subscription, and you should have 95% job scan match for every job. And you should tweak your resume for every single job and come up with a customized version. Absolutely false. It's not true at all. It's not realistic. It's actually, I've actually spoken to over 100 people who got a paid job scan subscription, and they would spend one day to get over 95% job scan match for one job, and they never got a single call. And they did that for hundreds of jobs. And the reason is because that's not how it works. The ATS in 95% of the time does not scan keywords. The ATS, yes, it can actually track some of the key questions. Are you legally authorized to work in Canada? Are you 18 years of age or older? Are you willing to go through a criminal background check? Are you comfortable with commuting to this job location? Stuff like that. So those important questions, those mandatory questions, if the answer is not what the recruiter needs, yes, it can rule out your resume. Otherwise, it does not happen that way. Your resume is 95% of the times rejected by a recruiter if he opens your resume. And that is when you're an early applicant. So let's say if, to one job posting, there are 300 applicants, the recruiter is probably going to open the first 50 applications. He will probably find 10 suitable applicants. He will send an automated email to everybody else. Yes, that email comes through ATS, but the recruiter has to trigger it. And then he will call those 10 candidates, do the screening call, shortlist 5 of them, send them to the hiring manager. He will shortlist 3 of them, send them to his manager, and then he will recommend 1. So that's how it works. So you do not need to customize your resume for every job. For instance, in finance, let's say if you're working in FP&A, and I've worked with probably over 100 FP&A professionals now, the key skills and the competencies are the same. What's the point in changing that? If you have captured it, if you have formulated it, and it's catching the eye at a glance, that you don't need to change anything. Over 450 people I've worked with, we have not made multiple resumes. We make one resume. That one resume does the job. It's just that you need to be an early applicant, and your resume should be easy to glance at. And you make that resume based on 10 target jobs. At least go through 10 target jobs. See what skills, what tools, what responsibilities they're asking for. And then you need to show how well you have done those responsibilities in your previous roles. And that's it. That's all you need to do. There is no magic to it. There is no sorcery to it. That's all you need to do. Third myth that immigrants will hear a lot is that in Canada, nothing happens without referrals. Absolutely not true. 450 odd professionals, nobody ever needed a referral to get an interview. And logically speaking, what is our expectation from a referral? get us to the interview seat. That is exactly what a resume is supposed to do. So instead of going around asking people for favors, can you refer me to this role? And can you refer me to that role? Or can you find me the recruiter for this role? It's better to work on your resume, because a strong resume and timely application will get you response at least 50% of the times. But a referral, especially, you have worked in big organizations as well. All the global organizations have a portal, and that portal, the internal employees can refer somebody. That application goes through in the same system, and then it might or might not be picked. So the point is that, yes, that's what we call a cold referral. Yes, if somebody knows the hiring manager directly and they're going to put your resume in front of them at their desk, okay, I know this guy, please consider him. That's something else. But why ask for that favor? Just work on your resume, and that's all you need. The last myth that we hear a lot is that you need Canadian experience to work in Canada to start your career. Again, all 450 odd people I've worked with, none of them had Canadian experience. They were all immigrants. On top of that, and we'll get to that, more details about it. So far, if I just talk about Pakistani candidates, fortunately, 44 candidates in the last 1 year that have landed a job offer before landing in Canada. Once they had the PR and before they landed, they had the job offer in their hands. And three more are actually going through interviews right now in Pakistan. So they didn't even have a SIN number. How would they have Canadian experience?
Yeah.
So all these myths, number one, your resume needs to be a certain length. Number two, you need to customize your resume for every job. Number three, you need referrals. Number four, you need Canadian experience. These are all myths. So please do not fall for them. Just we'll focus on making one solid resume based on 10 target jobs. Explain where you worked. For instance, if somebody worked in Jazz Telecom, Jazz is a big name back home. Yes, it is. But nobody knows Jazz here. Nobody knows Telenor here. Telenor is a global giant, but they don't have any presence here.
Yeah.
But this is what I tell to people who have worked in Jazz, that yes, it's a big name. But if somebody comes to you in Karachi or Lahore and they tell you that I worked in Rogers Telecom, you will probably think that it's a cell phone shop somewhere in the market. Similarly, nobody knows Jazz Telecom. But Jazz Telecom has 75 million subscribers. Canada's total population is 40 million. You need to show them how big an organization it was where you worked and how well did you work there. So you need to show how you are offering to bring value to the roles based on your past experience. How well have you done those things? And that's all you need. And this is exactly what I did to help all those candidates. And alhamdulillah, they all got very good responses. They all landed very relevant jobs. Nobody had to take a step down. So if somebody was working as an assistant manager, they started as an assistant manager. Anybody who's working as a manager, senior manager, director, they landed at the same role or same level here. Yeah. So you don't need to take a step down. It's just that you need to create that relevance.
I think it's really interesting that you brought that point where if there are people here that don't know the companies in Pakistan, if you can use the reference of, okay, this is the revenue compared to competitors in the industry, or that's actually a really interesting point I've not heard anyone say, but yeah, that is just to give the landscape of the level that you were working in. So that's a really good point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So like you mentioned, okay, this is a cellular company owned by this global group, has this many million subscribers and a revenue of this many $1 billion.
Yes.
Now you have given them a very clear lay of the land. Okay, this is where this person has worked and this is what they have achieved. Versus you just write XYZ.
Yeah.
And you're expecting the recruiter to go on Google and search it. No, they don't have the time for that. They have 300 applications to go through.
Right.
So you need to make their life easier. And that's how you create relevance.
Right. So you did mention several myths. So I guess like in terms of the specifics on how a person can be successful in the West in the first 2 to 3 months, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So this is what I tell everybody. The job hunt starts at least 2 months before you land. And now before you land, the first thing you should do is you should start looking at the jobs. You go on Indeed.ca, you go on LinkedIn and see the relevant jobs. What are they asking for? What are the responsibilities? What are the key skills, competencies, tools that they want experience with? So let's say if somebody is a civil engineer. Okay, what are the requirements for him here? So if he wants to work in project coordination, he wants to work as an engineer.
Yep.
When he goes through those jobs that are being posted on the job boards like LinkedIn and Indeed, he will have a very clear idea, okay, this is what I need to target. Second thing, I tell everybody, you just need to buy a voice over IP number. I did it myself back in 2019. You just buy it. You can Google it. You'll find multiple free services as well as paid services. I went for a paid service, which was $5 a month. It had voicemail and everything. So it's a Canadian number. You get a call on your Pakistani number. And then you can, you just put that number on your resume, update your location to Toronto, Ontario, or Mississauga, Ontario, or wherever you want to land. Just write that city there, start applying. So you start well ahead of your landing time. So by the time you land, ideally you should have a job offer. All those candidates that get in touch with me before they fly out, I tell them try to either delay your plans or do not buy a ticket if you haven't bought one already, because let's buy it once you have the job offer. Ideally speaking, when they land, their first concern should not be which mobile SIM to get. Their first concern should be, I have to get my SIM number because I have to provide it to my employer because the payroll is going to start in the next week. And that's the kind of planning, alhamdulillah, so many immigrants have already done. And it is possible. It is easily doable if you follow the right tips and you understand what the market is asking for. Second thing is, yes, if you want to network, networking is something else, referrals are something else. If you find somebody who has landed in Canada and who is from the same field, has a similar profile and is doing well in Canada, yes, you can reach out to them, ask them for a coffee chat. They can give you the lay of the land. They can tell you about the tips and traps. But remember the filter that I told you. If that person does not qualify that filter, please do not listen to them. They might misguide you. Do your research. Look at the job market statistics. Just search where Canadian unemployment numbers are. Right now, Canadian unemployment is it's close to all-time lows. Before you listen to somebody telling you, okay, Canadian job market is quite tough right now, just do your research. Google is your friend. Just do your research. Look up the last 3 months of hiring trends. You can actually see a bar graph that shows the number of new jobs being posted across every month. And you will understand that, okay, December to Jan, 10th December to 10th of Jan is the smooth period for the job market because everybody's on holidays. Nobody's going to respond to you. So do not land in December. You should land ideally in Jan or in July because those are the peak periods. So do your research, talk to people, talk to the right people. A lot of people that I've helped, they randomly reached out to me on LinkedIn. A lot of them have landed jobs, have started successful careers in Canada, been here 6 months. I've not even met them yet. They just reached out to me on LinkedIn one fine day. We set up a Zoom call. We discussed, I gave them the tips. We worked on their resumes and interview skills. They landed really good jobs. They arrived here with their families. They've settled in. Unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to meet. But that's the one thing I tell everybody is when you make the effort, then you'll get the result. When you're reaching out to people, when you're searching on the job statistics, the job market, you're looking at the new jobs being posted. You're looking at the job, at which recruiters, which employers are working on this, which agencies are working on this. You will understand it. There is nothing that is not there on Google. You can understand exactly what you need for your driving test or for your first G1 license as well.
Right.
There is nothing you do not find online. For instance, fortunately, when I landed, I knew exactly how far the Pakistan embassy was from my hotel in Vaughan. I stayed in Vaughan because I wanted to get my license accredited from the embassy. And then I knew where the drive test center was. So I went there straight. I got my G1 and then I booked my G as well. So just look it up. You will find G1 test apps. And I practiced my app. I practiced my test on an app while I was flying to Canada. And that's what I tell people. Okay, just download this on the flight. Just practice this. It's very basic. Just do 3-4 tests and next day you should go give your test because you need the G1 license as your proof of ID as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So those are the things. So just do your research. Social media is there. You will find a lot of Facebook groups as well. Make sure you join them. If you know anybody, there are a lot of WhatsApp groups. There are a lot of community groups that can help you out. So do your research. And anybody who's going to make all that effort, it's not very time consuming. And ideally speaking, you're doing that to start a new life in a new country.
Right.
So if you do that and you put in the right effort, you will definitely be rewarded.
And I guess, do you recommend people to actually reach out to recruitment firms as well when they're in Pakistan? Or do you think just applying by themselves would be the best option? Or I guess combination of both would work?
I would say combination of both. Ideally, you won't need to reach out to anybody. Once you have the right resume, you start applying. So let's say there is an ABC recruitment agency that has posted a role for, let's say, supply chain manager. And that's how I got my first call. Actually, I didn't even know there was an agency. I was back home. It was Ramadan, and I was having a sehri with my colleagues at Khanadar in Karachi when I received my first call. It was a recruitment agency. And interestingly, they were the first, when I landed here, the same agency got me my first role.
Oh, nice.
And at that time, I didn't even have the PR. I had just applied for the PR and I just wanted to test the market. So I got the voice over IP number, started applying. I applied to 10 or 12 jobs. I got 7 calls.
Nice.
So that gave me the pulse of the market.
Yep.
So when I landed here, I knew there is a demand for my profile.
Yep.
And fortunately, alhamdulillah, the moment I landed from some old application, a recruiter called me again. Okay, we have a role at Rogers. And I had just gotten in the car and I was driving out of the Pearson Air. So you should apply directly to the roles that are being posted by the companies. You can apply to the roles being posted by the agencies. Reach out to the recruiters if you need to. And if you can, there is no harm in doing that. I do not discourage it.
Yeah.
It's just that your resume, once you send it to them, either it's through a system application, through an email or through a LinkedIn message. If it's the right resume, it will work, inshallah.
Awesome. And how do you say, or what would you say to an immigrant that finds it impossible to find a job in their profession in the West? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So, Azim, what I would say is that so far I've worked with every job field except medical doctors. The only reason I've not worked with any medical doctors because no medical candidate has reached out to me so far.
Yeah.
But other than that, I worked with professions that I didn't even know that they existed. So there are some professions like operational risk compliance or web design.
Yeah.
I didn't even know they existed. And when I was working with those candidates on their resumes, I actually asked them, okay, tell me what exactly do you do?
Yeah.
And then I read through the job description and then that's how I got the understanding. The reason for explaining this whole background is that having worked with so many diverse fields, I can tell you with absolute confidence that there is no way you won't find a job.
Okay.
There is no way you won't find a job.
Yeah.
And this also connects back to the previous question. And what I mentioned earlier, somebody who's a civil engineer who's landing here, he should know if I need to work as an engineer or I would need to work on a job that has the title engineer, I'm going to need to go through certain certification.
Yeah.
So that's the research you do before you land, before you take this leap head first. You should have that knowledge.
Yeah.
You should not land here unprepared.
Right.
Do your research. You will know what you need to do exactly. So every job has a demand here. I can tell you with absolute certainty. I worked with people who had landed here 2 years back, and in 2 years, they were not able to land a single relevant interview.
Yeah.
And when we worked on their resumes, they had 6 to 7 interviews in 1 month's time.
Oh, wow.
Now, what happened? It's just how you represent yourself.
Yeah.
And this is what we need to understand. Your resume is the only medium you have to showcase yourself to the employers.
Right.
If it's not made well, if it's not made right, it's not going to work. It's not going to get you the response that you need. Do that research up front. Make sure you are well aware of the move that you're making. You know the steps that you would need to take, if any, once you land here. And every job field, every profession has demand here.
Right.
There might be a couple of additional steps that you might need to take, but that's it. There is otherwise, if anybody, I've spoken to hundreds of people that told me that. Interestingly, I'll give you a quick example. When I started helping out people outside supply chain and finance, because those people I'd been working with across the whole pandemic period as well. When I started working with other professions, people would tell me that marketing is something that you will not find any immigrant working in. It's all Canadians born and raised and studied here. It's a very closely guarded profession. And I heard so much stuff about it. It made it sound like a mafia or a cabal that is so closely guarded.
Yeah.
Interestingly, of all the candidates I've worked with, the highest number of candidates are from finance. The second highest are from marketing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was just that, again, it's human nature. We'll blame everything. We'll blame Canadian weather.
Yeah.
We'll blame racism. We will blame everything and anything except our own resume or our own profile or any mistake that we're making.
Yeah.
So I think we just need to introspect. That's all. Every profession has a huge demand here. And we just discussed Canadian market is, despite the recession, the lack of immigration is turning out to be a blessing in disguise right now. And the job market is full right now. It's full to the brim. Like even this late in the year, November, I was surprised Yesterday, I was talking to somebody that I'm surprised with the number of jobs coming up every single day.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about labor jobs, and I'm not talking about warehouse workers, and I'm not talking about call center agents. I'm talking about proper career jobs. I'm talking about finance. I'm talking about supply chain specialists. I'm talking about marketing managers. There are so many jobs coming up every single day. And that the delay in the pandemic that and the immigration is turning out to be blessing in disguise in this recession for the Canadian.
A lot of companies, from my understanding, they look for fit in terms of breaking that culture, that cultural barrier. When obviously, because Pakistanis, they won't have that exposure in Canada because they haven't even landed in Canada. So, how do you feel like bridging that gap in the interview process? Do you have any recommendations for that or any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the very basic tips that I tell everybody is that when you start an interview and let's say they ask you, okay, tell us about yourself or walk us through your experience, do not just talk about your work experience.
Yeah.
Talk about yourself at the end. So let's say, thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is XYZ. I have this many years of experience in this field. In my previous roles, I've done ABCD, and that ABCD should be picked from the JD because that's how you create relevance right away, that this is what I've done for these brands or for these companies. And at the end, you should throw in something about yourself. And outside my work hours, you'll find me reading books. You will find me watching thriller movies on Netflix. I know people who discussed Netflix seasons or series with VPs in their interviews.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was working with a candidate who was a fresh grad. He did his master's from Montreal. And when I told him that you should do this in the interview, he was like, no, how's that even possible? Why should I talk about my personal hobbies? I said, this is Canada. They want to know who you are, what you like to do. And he told the manager that, okay, I like to go camping. And at the end of the interview, it was a virtual interview, the manager said, okay, I want to show you something. He shared his screen. He went on Google Map. He showed him a camping site. He said, you said you're going to go to this camping site. Make sure you put your camp here because the view of the sunset and the sunrise from this point is to die for.
Yeah.
That's happening in the interviews.
Yep.
And this is what the difference is in Canadian culture versus where we're coming from, the part of the world we are from. Yes, we only talk about work. It's just shop talk. We don't want to know what else is happening. Or it's just everything else, then shop talk. That's why that's the basic tip. Talk about yourself.
Yeah.
Just tell them what you like to do. If you're a father, tell them you're a father. You have 2 kids. If you have a pet, talk about your pet.
Yeah.
So make sure you tell them something about yourself, who you are outside the work settings. They are really interested to know that. And like you said, the threat they want to see. I have discussed with senior vice presidents, I've discussed motorcycles in my interviews.
Yeah.
Because I told them I ride motorcycles, and then she would tell me, okay, I have this one, which one you got, which year? Oh, okay, it's a sports cruiser. So all those things, it happens. This happens. As immigrants, we find it hard to understand, but that's the most basic thing you can do. And you will see the tone of the interview, the whole aura of the interview would change because you will be a lot more comfortable.
Exactly. No, it's funny you brought up that story because it's been so long. Like when I interviewed my first year for KPMG, literally when I spoke with a partner, like the first 5 minutes was just talking about basketball because the Raptors won the NBA champions during that time, 2019, I think it was. And it was just 5 minutes of just talking about basketball. And then it just became so much easier. So I really relate, like in terms of it just makes it more easier to chat from that point. So very good point.
And another thing is, this is what I tell the candidates that I'm mentoring, and when they start their jobs, I tell them that the Monday meetings here are actually very relaxed.
Yeah.
Back home, the Monday meeting is something we dread. Here in the Monday meeting, the first 5 to 10 minutes would be spent going around the table asking, how did you spend your weekend? And you would hear all kinds of stories. I went to my cottage up north. I went kayaking with my grandson. I went camping with my girlfriend. You'll hear all kinds of stories. Right. Somebody would tell they were at the Blue Jays game. Somebody would tell you they were at the Raptors game, like you mentioned. So a lot of those things would be discussed, and you'll be surprised. Okay, is this a work meeting? Yeah. Because back home on Monday, everybody is already winding and they're still not out of their weekend mode and the week has already started. So the Monday meetings are actually dreaded. Here, the first 10 minutes are actually just talking about the weekends, and then they get to the shop talk.
Right. And I guess, were there any specific groups that you've joined or recommend others to join to assist them in their journey?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Azam. I wish I knew about the groups when I came here. Fortunately, alhamdulillah, I made my journey very easy. When I came here, I didn't know anybody. I had no connections here. Honestly, I didn't know a single soul in my field of profession. But there's Pakistan Professionals Forum. It's a huge community that we have. I'm also an admin of that group. I just joined that group in January last year. But alhamdulillah, it's a huge community. We have over 2,000 members from every profession. We have dedicated groups for each profession. There's a group for finance. There's a group for procurement, supply chain. There's a group for IT. There's a group for finance. There's a group for marketing. So you will find those very specific groups. So you can join those groups if you want. I can share. You have the links. You can put it in the description as well. People can just fill up the form and they can join the WhatsApp groups. It's very interactive. You will find all sorts of help there. So that's one group that I would definitely mention. There's another group called Immigrant Professionals in Canada. So those groups, make sure you reach out and ask. Like I said, networking is something else, referral is something else. If you're reaching out to a professional in your job field with a similar profile who's already in Canada for a few years, and they can refer you to such groups.
Yeah.
So do your research. Like I said, put as much effort as you can, because you are making a huge transition.
Yeah.
You're starting a new life, a new career. Everything is going to be brand new for you.
Right.
So whatever lay off the land, whatever tips and traps you can understand, it's going to go a long way in making your journey very smooth here.
Yeah, I think so. It's very interesting because I know I joined the Pakistan Professional Group a way back, and I didn't even know about this WhatsApp group. It's only when I think so there was like a big event that happened, and it was posted on the Facebook group. I think so you organized it as well. And then there was like one of the comments that came out, oh, there's a WhatsApp group. I was like, oh, where is this?
Yeah.
So then the forum came, and then
Yeah.
a lot of people in the group, I don't think so know about the group, like the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with
Absolutely.
you, there's a few people I've connected with on just a WhatsApp that I've been a member in the Facebook group for such a long time, and there's not been that much connections. But I think so. It's just like the numbers, like in terms of
Yeah.
easier messages and whatnot. So yeah, it's
Absolutely.
really, I think so. The WhatsApp group is really good.
Yeah. And you would see all kinds of discussions, like people are landing an offer and they want to reach out to somebody who is in the same field. They want to understand if the salary is competitive. They want to understand what RRSP is. Like when I landed here, I didn't know what RRSP is.
Yeah.
I had to Google it because I didn't know anybody. And then I realized, okay, this is what we called Provident Fund back home. So it's a retirement fund. So I didn't know that. And then what is vacation accrual time? Nobody knows that because those are not the terms we use usually back home. Those groups are hugely helpful in making you understand the basics of the job market. You can talk to professionals within your same profession at all levels. You can talk to somebody at an entry level. You could talk to somebody who's a vice president at a big partnership. So you will find all sorts of professionals there.
Yeah.
So make sure you reach out, make sure you ask them the right questions. Another thing that is very important, we need to be very professional in how we reach out.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn. Salam Umair. And I would say, wa alaikum assalam. Do you have a job for me?
I knew you were going to say that. I had a feeling you were going to say that. It's like,
I was like, okay. So, and I get them probably twice a week.
Yeah.
And that's not how you reach out. You need to be very concise and very to the point. Okay, I'm reaching out about learning about the job market in Canada. This is my profile. This is my current work status or work authorization status. I'm coming to Canada or I'm already in Canada, and this is what I'm trying to get help about. So if you can connect, and I would love to book some time with you. So make it short, sweet, professional. Do not waste their time.
Right.
Because, and then a lot of people reach out to me. Somehow all those posts about those events, I don't know how they give out the impression that I can help with immigration. I don't know anything about immigration. I'm not an immigration agent.
Yeah.
So they would ask me, okay, how do I get PR in Canada? Unfortunately, I cannot help with that. So that professionalism has to be there in your message if you want to get a response. Like I said, I have connected with hundreds of people, and I've mentored hundreds of people that reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's just that because they reached out to me in a very professional manner, they told me very precisely what they're looking for, and they asked for my help. And I told them, okay, let's talk tomorrow. Here's a link. Let's book a time, and we'll connect on Zoom. And then we spoke, and that's how. And when they planned their transition or their immigration from Pakistan or Dubai or wherever they were coming from, they landed with jobs that they already had interviews lined up. So their journey was very smooth. The right networking does matter. These groups are a huge plus.
Yeah.
I wish I knew about this group. Unfortunately, I didn't know about it. Somehow I also feel that it was fortunate for me because Allah saved me and protected me and shielded me from all these common myths about the resumes and everything. And I carved out the way, figuring out it out on my own with the help of Allah, alhamdulillah. So I think that was a blessing in disguise for me. But yes, if you're a new immigrant, that's reach out, join those groups. You will get all the help you need for your job hunt.
Yeah. And I think so. We briefly talked about professional recruitment firms, but like for any specific recruitment firms, do you have any recommendations to leverage or find these specific recruitment firms within like a person's industry, or do you have any tips for them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, the method to find those recruitment agencies is to look for your target jobs on LinkedIn and Indeed. For instance, for finance people, Becolanek is a famously known firm. So and any day you search for a finance job, you will find 3 to 4 jobs being posted by Becolanek. Similarly, if you're talking about supply chain, there's Artist Recruitment. If you're talking about engineering jobs, there's another company. I forgot the name of that. So when you look for your jobs, you will find those companies and you'll see, okay, this company is posting for civil engineer, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, designers, train operators. So, and then you will read the job description. It would say that we have been retained by one of our clients working in this sector for this role. So that gives you the understanding, okay, this is a recruitment agency. And the recruiters, they will help you find a role, but do not solely depend on them.
And in terms of networking, how crucial has that been for people you've either helped or yourself?
Like I said, hundreds of people reached out to me through LinkedIn, and I was able to help them. Alhamdulillah, they landed very good roles, very relevant roles. So networking is very important. That's why I would say this again, networking and referrals are 2 different things. Networking is you're talking to somebody who has been through what you're going to go through.
Yeah.
So you just want to understand how to navigate that journey. So you reach out to them professionally, send them a very brief, concise, to the point message that this is what I'm looking for. I would love to connect with you. And I'm sure a lot of people would help you. So that networking is very important to understand not just the job hunt journey, but also, like you said, which agencies, which recruiters, which companies, what is the job recruitment or what is the job market cycle, which periods are the peak periods, which period are the low periods. You will get to understand all those basic things through networking.
I think so. Also to bring up, like you mentioned, one of your myths about making sure that the individual has 2 to 3 years in terms of the work experience that they've had, and they've got the resume critique and whatnot, so they're fresh. I think so. That's a really important point. Yeah, definitely one of the myths as while you're networking.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if somebody tells you that, okay, the job market is really bad, right? Listen to them, but do your own research.
Yeah.
Just Google it up and you'll understand, no, that's not true at all.
Yeah.
Statistics Canada, that's all you need to look at.
Yep.
And you'll be surprised, okay, who's saying that? And a lot of people, when I have this Calendly link that just floats around, I don't know how it goes to so many groups and people book connects with me to review their resumes. And I would say if I talk to 15 people, 40 of them tell me, okay, I've heard the job market is really bad. And then I tell them, do you look at the statistics? And then I give them the first-hand experience. For instance, today I had 4 candidates being interviewed for 4 different roles. Those candidates I'm mentoring. One of them is in marketing. One of them is in sales. One is in finance. One is in supply chain. So the finance guy is being interviewed by a bank. Yeah. And there's a myth going out in the market right now that the banks are laying off people. Yeah. Yes, they might be, but if you look at it, the number of hiring they have done in the last quarter versus the number of layoffs, they are still positive. Right. They're still hiring more people. Yes, they might be restructuring or downsizing in certain areas, but they're still that positive. They're still hiring people. Yes, the only sector that has suffered the most after the pandemic is the tech sector. Yeah. Companies like Amazon, companies like Google, Shopify, yes, they have suffered because the e-commerce took a nosedive. Right. It was a vertical takeoff for them in the pandemic, and now it's a nosedive. That makes sense. But still, day before yesterday, a candidate just less than 3 years of experience, did his master's from here, software engineer. He was getting interviews before, but not as many. And now he has interviewed with companies like McKinsey. He has interviewed with companies like Google. Yeah. And he's landed an offer. Awesome. And a very good offer. So for somebody with just under 3 years of experience, yes, there is slowdown. But again, this is what I tell everybody. People say, okay, when we apply to some job, yes, we are the early applicant, but then the next day we look at the same job and it has 300
Yeah.
applicants. And I tell them, you're not competing against 300 people. You're competing against probably 20, because the recruiter, you were an early applicant, the recruiter is going to go through maybe the first 50 resumes, and they're probably going to reject 40 of them.
Yeah.
So you just have to be better than the 40 of them.
Right.
Your resume has to be easy to scan through. It has to stand out. The recruiter will shortlist it. They will call you. You're not competing against 300, 400 people. So because they don't have as good resumes, and a lot of people do not even apply to relevant jobs. They just apply to any job.
Yeah.
So you are not competing against them.
Right.
It's just that your resume has to win the race against probably 20 or 30 candidates.
Got you. And is there any specific platforms that you use for networking or recommend using for networking?
I would say LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn is the best. And then if you can get added to these groups, like Pakistan Professionals Forum, once you get added, or Immigrant Professionals in Canada, or any other forum, once you get added to that, we usually ask the candidates or the professionals to introduce themselves, mention what your profile is, share your LinkedIn profile, ask what you're looking for, and somebody will either connect you with somebody in your profession, or somebody would directly reply to you that, okay, I can help you out. So make sure you, again, put in the effort, that as much as effort as you can, because this is a huge transition.
Yep.
You can make it very smooth. You can make it sound like a breeze, because the effort you put in will pay you long after you have landed. Like if you know how you're going to open a bank account, if you know how you're going to get the driving license, because two things I'll tell everybody. If people who have been to Europe or who have been to even North America as tourists, coming as a tourist is something else. Coming as a resident is an entirely different ballgame. And let's say in Europe, due to the size of the country or due to the size of the cities, the public transport system is extremely reliable. So people actually prefer to take the public transit versus the cars. But in Canada, I tell everybody that without two things, you won't even like the Canadian summer. But if you have one thing, if you have both of them, you would even like the winters. And those two things are a car and a good job.
Yeah.
If you don't have a car, even going to get milk is a huge task. But if you have a car and you have a good job that is paying off your rent and your lease and everything, you will, then Canadian lifestyle is completely different. When Canada, because of its sheer size, the public transport is not that reliable. It's not that frequent. It's not that well covered. If you're living somewhere outside GTA or outside the main connections of the transit, it's really difficult to even get to Walmart.
Yeah. I guess this is, I find this probably is the hardest question I'm probably going to ask, but you mentioned about initiating the networking, briefly mentioning your, what you're doing, like why you're requesting, and not asking specifically, oh, I just need a job. But then once you get that initiating, like how do you maintain that connection? Because that's I feel that's like the hardest thing, because you get busy in life and whatnot. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's very difficult to keep people engaged. And what many people are going to actively mentor you. Yes, they might talk to you once or twice. So I would say that you need to set up that cadence with them.
Okay.
In the first connect, okay, so these are the tips you've given me. Thank you so much. I'm going to send you my revised resume in 3 days' time. So can we connect someday next week? And then you book that right away. And then you tell them, okay, I'm going to start applying. And then once you start applying, then you can say, okay, can we set up a cadence for, let's say, connect fortnightly? Maybe after every 40 days, we can connect. Or maybe after a month, I'll get back to you. So set up that cadence with them.
Right.
Won't become a burden on them, but set up that cadence, set up that calendar, set up those invites well in advance. Right. Connect with them on WhatsApp. And if you have their number, if they're kind enough to give you their number, do not bombard them with messages. Yeah. Like your message should not be, hi, how are you? Hope everything is well. Yeah. I applied to 10 jobs, and then you write a whole paragraph. Just write one message. And then at the end, just say, please drop me a voice note or a text whenever you get time. Yeah. So you need to be courteous. Somebody's going over and above their job. They're compromising on their personal time, and they're trying to help you out. Do not try to be a free rider.
Yeah.
just try to make the most of their time that they can and respect their timeline. And also, again, I'm not trying to criticize anybody. I'm just saying that you need to be cautious and mindful of what the other person might be going through. One fine day, I got a call at 12:45 a.m. and I was asleep. I woke up. It was a random Canadian number, and I picked it up, and somebody said, "Oh, you added me to this group. So I saw your profile on LinkedIn. I want to talk to you about jobs and supply chain." I said, "It's almost 1 a.m.
Yeah.
What are you talking?" He said, "Aren't you in Saskatoon?" And I was like, "Dude, you need to respect time. What are you talking
Yeah.
about? You saw my LinkedIn profile and you didn't
Check.
see where I am."
Yeah.
So those things we need to be mindful. And like I said, the keyword to that is being professional. So being professional means that you're courteous, you are crisp and short and sweet in your communication. You're not trying to free ride and you're not trying to be a burden on them. You send them a message, you respect their time zone, you respect their privacy, you respect their family time, and you don't bombard them with reminders or messages.
And I know like this recruitment process could be extremely like exhausting and like multiple rejections and setbacks along the way. What are your thoughts on just keep on going through it and pushing through?
As unfortunately, it's not been exhausting for maybe not more than a couple of people,
Mhm.
I would say. And that was industry specific, or I'll give you an example. Let's say I have experience in sales and marketing. I need to be very mindful of what battles I'm picking. So let's say if I look at the jobs, and like I said, you research the jobs, you find those jobs that are being posted for sales and marketing. Now, let's say if I see in a month's time, there were 50% more jobs for marketing versus sales. So ideally, I should target
Yeah.
marketing.
Mhm.
But a lot of people I've seen, they say, no, my dream is to land a job in sales.
Mhm.
And then they struggle.
Yeah.
Because Canadian landscape is very different. For instance, I was mentoring somebody and he sent me his resume. And he told me that somebody in a very famous multinational here has vetted his resume. And in his latest experience, he wrote that he was working in the general trade channel in Pakistan. Now, the general trade channel in Pakistan is what we call the mom and pop shops, the corner stores, the convenience stores. That is a very small channel in Canada. Canada is predominantly retail, Loblaws, your Sobeys, your Walmarts, your Costco's. And the general trade term is not even used here.
Yeah.
So I said, again, going back to the point, you need to create that relevance.
Right.
I asked him that, have you looked at your target jobs? He said, yes, multiple jobs. I said, did you ever see this word? I know this word because I've worked in Pakistan, but nobody would know this word here.
Right.
And so because of the difference in the channel, you might not land a role here because you do not have experience or you do not understand how Walmart or Loblaws or Sobeys work. So instead of chasing your dream, this is what I tell everybody. First, make sure your bread and butter is covered and then you can chase your
Yeah.
dreams.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a better chance of landing a job in marketing because you have more relevant experience in marketing, and there are more jobs in marketing in the job market every single day, then why are you chasing your dreams?
Mhm. Yeah.
First, you need to be wise. Let's put some
Experience.
food on your table, and then you can start chasing your dreams
Exactly.
somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
So it should not be excruciating. It should not be long. Yes. Some sectors might take 2 months or 3 months, but that's probably the longest it would take. Fortunately, I've not had any experience with anyone in any job field when once their resume was fixed, that they had to go through maybe more than 3 months of recruitment process. 3 months is the max.
Got you. And I guess we can end off like, how do you define success? I guess you can go professionally or personal, completely open on how you want to approach this question.
So in terms of professional success, I would say you need to have a very fulfilling career. Fulfillment could be different to everybody. It's a very personal thing. For me, fulfillment is number one, that I should be learning something ideally every single day. I should be doing something new. My today has to be better than yesterday, and my tomorrow should be better than today. If I'm not doing that, I won't feel excited. I won't get out of my bed. So I need to have those challenges, even if it's small, little incremental improvements. Ideally, those are the best ones. Big improvements are hard to get and they are usually not sustainable. Small little changes in your processes, small little changes in how you visualize your data, small little changes in how you are focusing your efforts, data analysis to identify where you need to be directing your efforts. So for me, that fulfillment comes from having that new challenge every day.
Right.
And when I say challenge, I'm not saying that something is going wrong. Ideally, nothing should be going wrong if you're a proactive person. If you're a well-planned person, you should not have surprises. But now once you have gotten rid of that firefighting mindset, then you are in that entrepreneurial continuous improvement mindset. So all the routine things are taken care of, and then you're finding new and better ways of working. You're finding new and better ways of operating. You're finding new and better ways of seeing your data. You're finding new and better ways of engaging with your teams. So that's something that I would say professionally. Personally, I feel that helping others, even with a kind word, even with some direction on how to do something, or even at times saying, sorry, I do not know, and I do not want to misguide you.
Mm-hmm.
Even that is a big level and a big gesture of kindness.
Right.
Because if you misguide somebody and you're not informed about that thing, you have actually done them a disservice. They will follow your lead and they will waste a lot of time. I think being kind and wherever you can hold somebody's hand and walk them through something that they're not aware of, and you've been through that, I think that's something that really is very fulfilling. And a lot of people have asked me this, that what is wrong with you? Why do you talk to 15, 16 people a day? And especially on the long weekends, I talk to 20, 25 people a day. And it's just 15, 20 minutes connects. But like even my son, he knows all these 4 Canadian myths that I spoke about. And he knows them because he listens. He hears me saying them probably 5 times a day when he's around and back from school. So I say that I feel that if I can guide somebody who has just landed and he does not know the lay of the land, he does not know what works and what doesn't work, if I can just give him some direction and he would at least know what to work on. Right now, he's just shooting in the dark.
Right.
So he's tweaking his resume. He's asking for referrals because he's still in that mindset. If I can just give him the right direction and I can just point him in the right direction and give him the right tips, and at least he knows now, okay, what not to do and what to do. I think that's very important. And I wish that I had somebody to tell me that. Fortunately, alhamdulillah, it never came to the point where I needed it.
Right.
But a lot of people need that. Almost every immigrant needs. And even if I got that before landing, it would have been very easy for me. I would have to second guess any.
Awesome. Yeah, Umair, thank you so much for being on this interview. I wanted to definitely preface that I really liked, like you, even before our conversation, you mentioned that you wanted to focus on specifically helping people, which matches exactly about the personal aspects. That is like amazing. Taking the time on a very late day as well, and just taking the time to give advice to fellow Pakistanis and immigrants coming to Canada. So thank you so much for your advice.
Thank you, Azam. Thank you so much for arranging this. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I really hope what you're doing is it actually gets to the right audience. And if they just listen to bits and pieces of this, they can actually make their transition very smooth. Thank you so much for having me on board.
Awesome. Thank you.